country has been very generous. That goes back to 2001, where in a very bipartisan way, President Bush created both the bilateral program, PEPFAR, and the multilateral program, Global Fund. And heretofore, and I hope, and you could say I'm optimistic, the U.S. has provided a third of all the funding for Global Fund. So they've been by far the biggest donor. The European donors collectively about match the United States. But the United States has shown great leadership on this, and that's an organization that's extremely well run, very low overhead, working on, of course, HIV, malaria, and TB. We have exciting new tools for every one of those diseases. For example, a shot that protects a woman for 6 months, and we'll get the cost of it down over the next couple of years. So it's only $40 for an entire year of protection, which would mean coming in twice. So everyone who really goes to Africa and sees this work comes away deeply affected. And so we hope to see the U.S. continue to provide leadership here.
So just in your optimism then, is there a specific program or programs that you think might get that fresh injection from the U.S. government as a result of your conversations?
Yeah, so with the U.S. government, usually this is a question for the Congress, where the Congress did provide in the budget that's currently active very generous funding for these programs. Some of that money, a little over half, is not being spent today, although there's some discussion about some of that coming back. So we have to have really two things here. We have to have the Congress pass a budget, which I'm 90% sure will be quite generous on these global health programs, at most a very modest cost. And then we have to convince the administration that actually fulfilling that budget commitment is a great thing for the United States. And I'm also optimistic about that.
Okay. We talked just now about vaccines, so I have to ask you, what is your assessment of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s U.S. vaccine policy and U.S. global leadership on public health?
Well, obviously I have been very involved with vaccines, and the biggest single reason why childhood death went from 10 million down to 5 million is because of the availability of new vaccines. There were really three, one called pentavalent, one called rotavirus for diarrhea, and one called pneumococcus for pneumonia. And those have been made available to all the world's children. We've reduced the cost very dramatically, which is making room for new vaccines for things like RSV, HPV, which is to prevent cervical cancer. It's an incredible story, and we have a great pipeline of vaccines coming. It is tragic that we see this vaccine skepticism, because even though the number of additional deaths in the rich world is likely to be modest, every life should count, and when the poor countries hear that skepticism, it spreads there as well. And there, the chance of a child dying when they get measles is about 30% versus about 1% in rich countries. And so tragically, that skepticism, which is not well-founded, will have caused more deaths outside the country than inside the country. And so, we're carrying the message about the value of vaccines, and of course very serious about the safety testing to make sure that the benefit is overwhelming.
So with RFK Jr., you've agreed to disagree?
On vaccines, yes. I've met with him, and there are other things like this HIV cure work that is what's called a gene editing approach. And so I'm hoping in some areas we can work together, because the U.S. government's research budget has always been a huge supporter of global health innovation.
Prime Minister Sanchez, we are on the eve of the UNGA, and of course, the war in Gaza looms large this week. In a major shift, just in these hours, France, the UK, Australia, and Canada have joined you. You were the first in recognizing a Palestinian state. So, but you have said that you want to go further. For example, banning Israel from sporting events. What do you hope to achieve this week?
So, you know, I had the chance to meet Prime Minister Netanyahu like 2 months after these horrible and terrible terrorist attacks perpetrated by Hamas, and we condemn it, and we urge Hamas to release the hostages, and this is, you know, was really clear, stated by the Spanish government, and I believe the whole international community. But one thing is the right of a country to defend its country, and another, this suffering, this humanitarian tragedy, and killing innocent people. And I'm really concerned that the indifference, the lack of empathy, is gaining presence in the public debate and in the minds of the international society, and that is why I think it's so important that we raise the voice. We urge for immediate ceasefire, allow the humanitarian aid enter into Gaza, stop this war, and open a political process that end up with the recognition of the state of Palestine. And I think this is this is a must, no, for the international community. And you know, coming from Europe, coming from a European country, I always share with my peers in the European Council that the same values and principles that we are defending in Ukraine are the same values that we should defend in Palestine, which are international law and international humanitarian law. And I think that when you see after 2 years, the question that the Israeli society should answer is if they are today, or their country is more secure than before the war. I believe they are less secure and more isolated. So I think that the strategy that Prime Minister Netanyahu follows after these terrorist attacks is wrong. Because when you fight against terrorism, there are 3 policies that you have to take in place. Of course, there is the security dimension, how to fight against terrorists. But there are other 2, which is respect for international law in this case, so justice. And third, politics, diplomacy. At the end of the day, we need also to fight against the ideology behind these terrorist organizations. Coming from Spain, that we suffer for many years, for 40 years, terrorism, and national terrorism in the Basque Country, and also the jihadist terrorism in Spain, we know quite well how to fight against terrorism. And I think there's a political battle that we need, or at least the society need to put in place, and in order to, let's say, reduce the presence of this ideology, no? But not killing innocent people, and of course not recognizing Palestine statehood, which, by the way, will be the political solution to stabilize the Middle East and to allow the Israeli society and the Palestine society to live in peace and with security. And that is why I think what has happened today in the General Assembly is so important. At the end of the day, you have two countries from the Security Council, the UK and France, recognizing the state of Palestine. And second, within the Western society or countries, I believe there's a large majority nowadays of countries that already recognize Palestine statehood. And this is great news for the international community and great news for the Palestinians.
Mr. Gates, in your opening speech, you spoke about this being a miraculous time for innovation, and of course you spoke of AI. Can you tell us what you are most excited about? And also, some say that big tech is spending too much on this technology. What do you think?
Well, it may be that in the end, individual companies' investments will, in retrospect, have been proven too much. But I can say with total conviction, AI is going to change the world in a dramatic way. And many good things, but because of the rate of change, it will challenge us as well. For my work at the Gates Foundation, we have 4 dreams about AI. One is to use AI to discover new health tools much faster than ever before. And that is already happening in a way that makes my job fun and surprises me every single month. The second, which we're just at the very beginning of, is that if you're in a low-income country and you have a cell phone, in your native language, you should be able to talk to a virtual doctor and get advice and understand, okay, when do I need to go to the clinic? If you're a person living with HIV, if you're a pregnant mother. And doing that with very high quality and at a reasonable cost does seem within grasp. And so for the next few years, we'll have pilots and really look at enabling healthcare delivery. The 2 other scenarios, one that not everybody works on, but agriculture after health, which is 70% of our work. Our next biggest program is our work in agriculture. And so the dream is that the poorest farmer in Africa, in their native language, would have better agricultural advice than the richest farmer today in the United States or Spain has about prices and weather and varieties and diseases they'll be talking through with data about their particular, even fairly small plot of land. And then finally is AI in education. And so, it's the biggest technical revolution in my lifetime. It's built on the digital revolution that I got to be a part of. And the foundation is going to try to make sure that even the poorer countries are benefiting as quickly as the rich countries.
So we have only a couple more minutes, unfortunately, but in your autobiography, you say that you have a recurring dream, including now, that you're at Harvard, your alma mater, and that you don't know where your class is, you don't know which textbook you need, you're wandering around looking for the exam room, and you are sure that you will fail. What do you worry you will fail at now?
Well, there are days when I look at the cause that we're talking about here, in helping children survive and thrive, and I think, what are we doing wrong? I mean, isn't this pretty straightforward that we shouldn't cut the resources going to this work? And what am I missing? Why do we do such a bad job? I had a period of time between 2000 and 2008 where I was still full-time at Microsoft, but part-time for the foundation. So I'd go to a big global event like Davos, and on one day I would announce a new piece of software. And you know, the press was there and so excited, and oh my God, this is so great, which it was. And then, you know, the next day I would go to the Gavi press conference. Okay, we're just saving millions of children's lives, and we just, you know, rolling out the rotavirus vaccine, and like nobody would be there. And so it is, you know, this is a world, you know, capitalism responds to the consumers who have money, and the people who suffer from and die from malaria, their voice in the marketplace is so weak that the only way to take this mistake that a pure market system makes and offset it is through a combination of government generosity and philanthropy. And you know, it's possible that aid budgets will keep getting cut over the next 10 years. And we have aging societies. You know, we have a request to get defense spending up to 5% of GDP, which you could, you know, spend all the aid budgets 4 times over just by, if you cannibalize them, trying to get to a number that high. So I don't know that will succeed, but it certainly is the most moral cause that I've ever been involved in, so it really should succeed.
So last question, one for the both of you. Very simple. This evening is about children. So, and I'll give you a second to think about it. What is the one word that each of you would give to the children of today that will inspire them for tomorrow?
A word?
One word.
I would say commitment.
Commitment.
I'm a big fan of curiosity.
And you got alliteration as well, commitment and curiosity. On that note, we have to close. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Very well done.